all, and welcome back to another thrilling episode of Off the Dome. I'm your humble interviewer, Jordan Brown, and with me, as always, is our admirable assistant art director. Say hi, admirable assistant art director.
Hi, I'm Kelsey.
Kelsey, thank you so much. Well, first of all, new title. Very exciting, I hope. I have the words model shop coordinator written down as I was like, all right, let's go find our word that starts with M that means good to do the intro. And then I saw assistant art director is on there, and I was like, oh, well, now we got to find an A word and not the same A word that we've used 1,000 other times. So,
well, my title has been the model shop supervisor, not coordinator. I guess it was coordinator like a while ago. But yeah, we're just trying to find the right title that fits the job that I do, because it's kind of, unique.
Yeah. Yeah. I know when I talked to Sky Smith, we talked about, like, they had said, because they were originally like lore keeper and now they're not script supervisor, but it's basically script supervisor because that's the job they were doing.
Yeah.
And they were like, yeah, it's great in the context of Dimension 20 and Dimension 20 fans, but if I apply for a job anywhere else, they're like, what does that mean?
Exactly.
This is so exciting. We're not on the day, but like we're 9 months out from the first time we chatted, which was October 18th or 19th. I looked it up and instantly forgot. Last year, you were my first interview for Off the Dome, which is so cool. I'm so grateful that you've come back now. This is the well, I guess technically fourth time we've chatted because you were on both of the roundtables. But the problem is I said it's 9 months and it's going to sound like I'm implying that you're pregnant, but that's not the question that I want to ask you. Do you have any major life updates that have happened since last October? And congratulations on getting married.
that was what I'm married. So that was very exciting. That was 3 months ago.
Yeah, it's very exciting getting to see that. It's so strange to, like, having started doing these interview series, seeing people, like, progress with new job titles and everything like that. And it's like, oh, I feel like we're friends, and like my friends are like, as you would expect, like my friends are like doing cool things out there. But what is more difficult, set decorating for Oprah or set decorating for Brennan Lee Mulligan?
Oh, you were going through my LinkedIn. The Oprah thing was actually one of the catalysts for making me go back into miniatures. Because I was doing a lot of live action stuff and doing a bunch of really interesting, I was doing a lot of like special effects makeup kind of stuff, like gory things, which was very good for doing the bear. I found my way being recommended on like different things, and I found myself on a home renovation show, which was the Oprah thing. And I was like, what am I doing here? And then that same week I got like 2 different miniatures jobs, because I was like, time to put my energy into what I really like. And then here we are.
Yeah, that's just great. Yeah, we are, I think this is week 8 of Never Stop Blowing Up. I think so. I'm 1 episode behind because of Gen Con and COVID. Really, really knocked me out for 2 solid weeks. But I have at least seen the preview of last week's episode where smoke starts coming out. And we get to see, like, obviously a really, really different season. First of all, obviously no like battle map miniatures, but actual size props being handed out at the table, very different than normal seasons. What was, and obviously, like, you've recently posted the GM screen, that like really cool smoke effect. I guess let's start there, because obviously you had a huge hand in building that. What was the vision on that? How did that come to be? What was that process like?
Well, Rick and Raven had made the bare bones of the DM screen up in Lopez, and then we worked on that for maybe like 4 days, which was very quick, while Rick was doing the internal like air vent thing. So it was a lot of it was so quick. We were like, here's the brief, like here's the vibe, here's like the movies that we're kind of referencing, go, which is, always fun to kind of, we got a bit of being able to add little things that we wanted, like the graffiti and those kinds of things. But yeah, it was a lot like, here's the like Rambo text, like make this look like match the color for our blowing up thing. And it was a lot of, looking at movie references, and then with Rick's direction of like where we're going and like what we're trying to emulate to capture in like that one like Frozen scene, which we hadn't done before, which was really cool, like having that explosion. There's like little rocks that are coming out of it, and then the helicopter with the like the bullet or whatever, the missile. I love that like static look, and I think we accomplished it really well.
Yeah, it's really cool to have that obviously such a different vibe than other seasons, which, obviously the GM screen is a incredible art piece every time.
Yeah.
But to have like a diorama is not the right word, but like
it's like a diorama. I've been using the word tableau.
That's a much better word. Tableau's a much better word. Thank you. But to have that like really cool action tableau. Are you an action movie fan, or is this a thing that you had to like move out of your comfort zone and start watching some Tango and Cash or whatever?
I like action movies. I'm kind of I have a husband, so you kind of have to, I guess. But I do like tune out during like the whole like gun sequence. I'm not interested in shootouts, I guess, but everyone likes like crawling through the air ducts kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, you brought it to life brilliantly. I'm also really curious. Like I said, there are actual props this season.
Yeah.
Ranging from like a bag of cocaine to a finger in an evidence baggie. How much? Excuse me. How much were you hands-on in that process? And also, was everybody just like, "Yep, we got it," or was this a new skill set that people had to like bring to the table?
The life size props was Allison's thing. Like she took over all of the big props while I think she did all of them while we did the DM screen. But yeah, so I didn't.
You said that the production on this started basically a year ago.
Yeah.
And that, like obviously we're about to getting close to the wrap up date, since it's 10 episodes. What was obviously like, I assume that means if it was a year ago, was it when you just found out Dropout wasn't struck content and could come back that this like started like ramping up? How was that process for you?
I think this was right after the strike. So this was September 18th is when we started working on it. So that would have been like Fantasy High would have ended. And I think the writer's strike would have, or the actor's strike would have like just gotten over. I'm not really sure with all that timeline. It was kind of like crazy. We were like 4 days of work. Yeah, let's go.
Oh man. This is going to be such a fun interview to edit. I'll probably just leave my coughing in because it's so hard.
Everyone's on the same page. Everyone's got COVID, it seems.
Yeah. If you're watching at home, this is week 2 of Jordan interviews someone while pretty sick with COVID. I'm much better now, though. Like my last week interview was just like, I asked a question and they answered, and I was like, oh no, I don't think I can follow up because I didn't hear a word they said. Yeah. Like my brain just fully spaced and I don't know what's happening.
That's crazy how it works like that.
Yeah. But yeah, obviously like you came off of Fantasy High, jumped into Never Stop Blowing Up. Such a different, I mean, couldn't be more different vibes for like seasons. I assume that's like one of the joys of getting to work at D20 is you get such incredibly different projects that you get to work on. Like obviously we chatted during Burrow's End, like very different vibes as well in terms of what you're getting to produce.
Yeah. This one, I do feel like the DM screen is definitely different. Like it kind of has a formula in a way, but this one, we were using a lot of different techniques. We were doing like perspective. We usually always have to work with perspective because our DM screen is about 6 inches wide. So we have to fit a lot in that space. But the way that we did our cities, I found very fun. Just like flat pieces of laser cut acrylic that was hand painted to have like the beautiful like setting sun look on the skyscrapers. Or I guess it was like halfway through we were like, oh, maybe it's not the setting sun, maybe it's like reflecting the explosion. But yeah, so it was we're always trying different things, and like you'll see with this smoke element it might come into other situations. So we're always like building on our like building upon the formula that we have.
Yeah. Obviously, like having like practical effects in the dome is really, really cool. But goodness, like projections just next level this season in terms of just like, we got bullets, we got smoke, we got, obviously so many different types of explosions. Was any of that, like, as you're like working on something like the DM screen or like table and stuff like that, how much of that are you even having to like consider, think about, like, oh, and also Brennan has 10 different explosions that he can press at any given time?
Well, actually, so one of the first things that happened, so like the helicopter is like hovering, and it's on like a very thin steel wire to hide it. And then once they like start sitting down and at the table, like it's like moving a lot. So we had to like figure out how to reattach that. But then like after I came in to work on that and a couple other things, Rick texts the group and he's like, someone just threw a bag of cocaine and it hit the helicopter. So like straight out of a 80s movie, like actually happening. Bags of cocaine just taking out helicopters.
Just taking out helicopters. Incredible.
So there are like when things get very physical, I do find it wasn't a big deal on this one, but on other, I guess it's kind of an issue. Like I feel like the DM screen is starting to kind of compete with our Brennan a little bit because they're getting bigger and we're getting like more into it. Not into it, but like we're like really excited about the capabilities that we get to put on the boards and the DM screens, and they're like starting to get bigger, like more exciting. And I do think we're getting into danger of competing here.
Yeah, look, I mean, you always want to get a text that says someone threw a brick of cocaine and has taken out a helicopter. What a fun workplace. I know we have an Abria season coming. I know no other details than that, but Sky was given the green lit to say that Abria has GM'd, which is not surprising, but like that it has been filmed, and that and obviously last time we talked, we were talking about Abria and Brennan being at war in terms of one-upping the other. I'm assuming that continues, but you don't have to give any details.
Yeah, like there's we're definitely trying out new things in the next season with Abria. It's similar in some ways to this season, but yeah, we're always like, there's components of this new season that you'll see later in other seasons. So we're like just building up like this really incredible toolbox, and we're able to like keep each season like growing and growing with like new added interesting elements.
Yeah. I mean, one of the really cool elements this season is obviously how much Brennan has gotten into it with just like full like cosplay. I've seen people saying that they think the final episode it's just going to be a skeleton and Brennan will just be voiceover off screen. But obviously like really like matches the vibe that is directly in front of him. I know we mentioned briefly like that, like the smoke. Can you talk me through like building that, like the sort of explosion smoke effect at the front of the DM screen that is such a like central point of the tableau? A much better word.
That was that was really fun. It was kind of like I showed up and that was the first thing that I did because, like I had done the big cloud for Fantasy High. So that was pretty easy. And I'd done other explosions. I'd been working on these other like tableaus and dioramas for this guy who was hiring me to make like Star Wars like scenes. So I was making like little explosions and stuff for that. So I had a pretty good idea of how I was going to do it. Adding the rocks though, coming out of it was a fun touch that Rick brought up, and that's a really cool element that I want to like put into something else now. So it's just polyfill that's formed into the sort of general shapes, and then you use the airbrush to highlight your shadows, or like make your shadows and then make your highlights. It's like a great way to make explosions. And then we added lights inside of it, which is very easy to do. Anyone can make their own explosions at home just with a little polyfill and a little airbrush, or you can actually just if you don't have an airbrush, you could mix the polyfill up in a little bit of paint just to get the coloring. But yeah, so that was fun.
Yeah, I mean, it turned out incredible. Obviously, well, you mentioned I guess it's Rock the Boat of junior year, the giant cloud monstrosity.
Yes.
We've talked a little bit about that, but boy, I want more details on junior year, because what an incredible season that was in terms of like every map stunning. What did you? I mean, what did you have your hands on? Start to end. I was going to say start to beginning. You know, that common phrase. Start to end, like every battle map that was out there. I'm assuming it was like all hands on deck because there was so much going on.
Yeah. The way it would kind of go. So I was, leading our shop. So it's kind of like the process is like brainstorming with Rick and Allison, and then kind of like being like, oh my God, what are we doing? Like, how are we going to do this? And then kind of like giving it a second and being like, okay, and going back and being like, okay, this is how I think we're going to do it. Do you have any other ideas? Okay, I'll incorporate that, blah, blah. And then you go and find within your team, like who is best suited for all these different tasks. And then you go and let them know what you're doing. Rick has just, his drawings have like really just, they keep getting more and more beautiful. So you go show them the drawings, answer questions, and then I kind of, in the beginning, was kind of like, I guess when we're doing larger stuff, like I was kind of focusing on more on like detail things. So I like, have these artists that I really trust to do like these specific things, and I kind of fill in the gaps a bit. So I'm always getting to do fun little things, and then kind of like as the season ramped up, like people are more focused and like know what they're doing, so I have a little bit more time to make things. So while I'm like feel like I have this like big hand in all of it, which I do, like I feel that way almost because I'm like like these are like my little children making everything, and I feel like very like their work is like my work because I love their work so much and trust them and stuff. So like there throughout it, like I've definitely gotten to be a part of every board, which is really exciting. And it's kind of like, I don't know, I'm rambling at this point. It was a long time ago.
It's a fantastic answer. Not rambling at all. Because I want to know more about it, because we didn't get a chance to talk one-on-one during junior year. And so like I'm gonna use this opportunity to also find out about that, because why not? Did you have a favorite battle set, either that you worked on or that that like ended up like in the show, like if in terms of like, oh, it turns out this was actually super fun, whatever. Did you
Yeah.
have a favorite battle set? How about that? How about that's the end of the question?
My favorite was the Thistle Spring one, because of all the little tiny pieces. Like that felt very like nostalgic to me, kind of in like the like dollhouse sense. And it felt very like classic, like fantasy in a way, which we don't often do. It's like a little, different. So getting to just make like tiny little food or like doing a lot of patterns. And at that point throughout the process, we were kind of like in a really good pace. So kind of people felt like I think that was the one like everybody had their hands in, like everyone got to paint something, everyone got to make something. So it was kind of like a big group picnic, with all of our stuff, just like they were doing. And there's a lot of pieces to that. I was, uh, the cloud battle. Sorry, someone's calling me. The cloud battle, I was surprised, like not surprised, but these things go on in the dome, and they just totally transform. And sometimes we're working at such a quick pace that we don't have time to see them under the lights. We often don't have the time to see them under the lights, and we were doing a lot of work on top of a light box. So like the sky was like a transparent blue with the clouds, and I was having to hold up my piece of plexi that I was spray painting like a clearish, like you'd spray it and it looked like black, and you're like, okay, if you hold it up into the sky to kind of like have the sun reflect through it to see what the light would look like. But it was kind of like a guessing game. So I was really surprised at how that turned out, and how, like, I mean, with the mini shoots, they get so in the set, it would like transform them. So the response to that was just kind of unexpected. Like I was getting a lot of comments, people being like, I've never seen anything like this. Like this really like changed the way I like thought was capable in the dome. And you're like, wow, like this is really took me and Irene like 2 days to do. Or not even 2 days, but like it was very quick.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, like it turned out really well. That obviously, like I remember when that battle came out, it was really surprising how stunning everything was. I mean, you also had like the I said blimey moment to end that battle. So it's like there was also like the lunacy of the episode. I think also just like perfectly came together, and people were like, "Oh, I love everything about this." What was some of the fan reaction that you got to see over the course of that season? I assume positive.
Oh yeah. I don't. People like Casey and Rick will talk about like how people like nitpick on stuff, but I don't know what they're looking at. I'm like, where are you reading these things? I don't know if it's like
it's probably Reddit. It's a nightmare over there.
I like to sometimes look and see if people are talking about the minis. They're not, or like the sets. I'll like type in like sets and just to see if anyone's like talking about them. They're not talking about it as often as I want them to. But no, I've had like great reactions. I've had people like, I just like people's comments are so sweet and like kind, and I really do try to respond if people like say something nice on my like behind the scenes posts, or if they message me. Like people will ask me kind of like how to do things, which I love. I love trying to explain how things are made, which is part of why I really like doing these interviews, because and why I like the relationship with like the fans with like the minis or like the sets in this, like people who really like that kind of stuff, and want it highlighted more, because I do feel like that is like the connecting, or it's just like makes it feel like possible. Like we're just like 5 people who are like just trying to be as scrappy as possible. It takes a lot of time to or like build experience to be able to make the work that we do, but I do think it's really possible if you're putting in the time to make as like beautiful a sets as we make, or like paint the minis. I mean, Shane and Jesse are like doing something crazy. Every time I try and paint minis, I'm like, I I'm trying. It's not gonna look like that. They're nuts. And they do it so fast. Like they're crazy. I guess that's part of it is like people we get a lot of fans who like want to work on the show and they'll reach out to Rick or like other people, sometimes me, and like that's I think the thing that like separates it is like being able to do all this stuff so quickly. Like we made all of that stuff for this season. I mean we had some of it already made from Lopez, like from Raven, but like we painted everything and like made all this stuff in like a few days, and being able to operate at that like high pace is like really what separates it, I guess. But I do think anyone can make this stuff, which I like.
Yeah, I'm sure like you get like, hey, here's this beautiful mini that took me 6 months to paint. Can I have a job? And it's like,
yeah,
if you can do that in an hour. Getting to talk to Jesse and Shane has been really fun as well, because obviously they're just like, yeah, and then I melted a mini and I painted it, and it turned out to be the most beautiful thing anyone has ever seen. It's like, but how? Yeah. How does your brain go, like, if I do this wild thing, it's going to be good? But I also, I mean, I feel very similar, in terms of, like, I don't have that visual brain of like, oh, I can make rolling thunder clouds that are going to be like stunningly beautiful in like a in a monster face and a giant hand and like all of that stuff sort of come together. But yeah, it's really fun. I know obviously like there's been, I mean, it's certainly, at least for junior year, a lot of new folks in the shop, in terms of just like, I'm assuming just in absolute like necessity of, we have so much to build. We need more hands than we have. What is, I mean, how is that process? You said like people reach out and they want jobs, and I'm obviously not like hey, reach out to Kelsey for a job, but what is that like onboarding someone into this wild world of like, all right, we need this and we need it fast and we need it good.
Yeah, it's a consistent like upkeep. Like we have people who work with us on multiple seasons, and but a lot of the people that we've been working with recently work in stop motion or like other miniatures-esque like fields, and that it really comes down to like the time that we have to do everything, because these other productions, like you have like months and like weeks to make things. Like I was talking to Greg, who had worked on Fantasy High with us, and I was talking about a mold that I had to make for a D20 thing, and he was showing me a mold that he had made for a stop motion thing. I was like, oh my god, like that's the most beautiful mold I've ever seen. How long did you have to do that? He's like, oh, this took me like a week and a half. And I was like, to make the mold? Like, that's crazy. But like that is normal in some fields. So yeah, so that's a big part of my job is like, all right, this looks great. Like, how about we try and like, this is such a good foundation. Now it just needs to get finished. So like, let's go. And they're like, so like cut some corners. I'm like, yes, like let's go. We only have 2 more days. And then, I mean, we just do crazy stuff all the time in like this short period. And we talk about that a lot, like how quickly we have to get things done. But, like while things are highlighted in the mini shoot, it really is kind of like this, like, even though it's small, it's kind of like the large scale spectacle of it all, like all these tiny things. Like when you're looking at it from like, sitting at the table, it all comes together. You're not like looking at it with binoculars, I guess.
I think, yeah, I mean, obviously one of the like really, I don't know, helpful, whatever, like the thing that's like certainly in your favor is that idea that anyone can do this kind of thing of like, if you took enough time and like skill, like you could build similar models, and and I think like that really helps that you're like, oh, it is still like 6 people, 7 people playing, D&D or whatever game at a table. And so, yeah, some of the minis look like they're minis that we've painted. And, not like this needs to be like Pixar level stop motion,
Yeah.
like this is going to be nominated for an Oscar next year kind of thing. You don't have a week to build it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think like obviously like getting into that of what fans get to experience and what they expect. Probably, I mean, because every season keeps sort of building, like you said, on those skill sets. I assume demands are becoming more and more of like, hey, can you also do this? I mean, obviously, we know Abria wants you to cut a hole in the table. What? Are we still at the point, obviously, several seasons that have been filmed and haven't aired yet, are we still at the point where art team is mostly still saying yes to every request that's coming in? Or have you reached a breaking point in terms of what the model shop can do?
I do, yeah, like we complain about time all the time, but artists are going to take every bit of time that we can and just like perfect and like just spend the time making. So having the time constraints is actually fun and helpful, and it creates this new like a fun like pace and dynamic. And we are always doing more with less time. It's a double-edged sword. We're like coming in, blowing people's minds, and then they're like, all right, let's do something even greater and in less time. Wait, hold on. But so far we have continued to, we're Rick's saying yes to everything. So I'm figuring out how to make those things happen. So I'm excited for the next seasons that are coming out. They're really, really interesting, and we're doing a lot of crazy cool stuff.
Oh, that's so exciting. Obviously, like I said, we know Abria's coming. We know Dungeons & Drag Queens 2 is coming. That's the only two I think that we have like confirmed on the books. Yep. Presumably, we get some more Brennan in there, other than D&D Q2. But one of the other things that's very exciting and coming for Dimension 20, Madison Square Garden, which obviously is, I mean, mind blowing, right? Of like, oh yeah, I talked to Carlos and he was like, yeah, I think it was Andrew Bridgman was messaging him, and he's like, here's the number of people in the queue to buy tickets, and Carlos was like, but that's more people than Madison Square Garden seats. What do you mean? And he's like, and that would be if every person in the queue bought one ticket, and most people don't buy one. And he's like, I don't understand. I mean, obviously, probably going to be a limited set or whatever it is. But I'm assuming there's going to be some spectacle that they want to pull off at Madison Square Garden because it's Madison Square Garden.
I hope so.
No word yet for the model shop of like, hey, we need you to combine Fantasy High, Unsleeping City, like make all the sets into one.
Yeah.
Or can you not? Or is it you can neither confirm nor deny?
I will neither confirm nor deny.
Perfect. Are you going to be at Madison Square Garden? How about that?
I hope so. That'd be crazy. Maybe like if we do something and get shipped out, I'll like, oh, whoopsie, it's broken. I have to go.
Yeah. Yeah. You right before you package something, you snap it, and you're like, oh no, I'll fly out. And everyone's obviously very excited about it. I mean, when I talked to Carlos about it, it was he seems to be sort of lost in his own headspace, I'll say, of like how big and wild you can make this, which seems very fun.
Yeah, I think that they need their own taste of their medicine where they feel a little out of their element as well. Because I do think that, it's a big surprise. Like, I don't think they could have booked Madison Square Garden in the first place without, this level of like fan support. But I do think the level to which it's like happening is just unbelievable. But I mean, it is believable because people really care, and it's something, this is so different,
Yeah. And you mentioned obviously like as that kind of goes back into like fan reaction, getting to see behind the scenes. It's one of the things that I love about like everything that you do, as well as your coworkers, in terms of like, oh, we're going to take pictures along the way,
Yeah.
or videos or whatever, right? So I've got and now a year from now, I'm going to be able to post like, here's the DM screen, right, or whatever. What is it like having that of like, oh, I took a picture that I literally cannot post on the internet for one full calendar year.
Yeah, I do. I wish they would hurry it up. But yeah, I've been getting very, I think I've like been getting very sentimental recently. So I've been taking a lot more pictures and like kind of documenting not just D20, but my life. Like I have, like a memory book, and I have the, some of Rick's drawings and some reference images that I put in my book. And I'm like, oh, and now I can't like, I mean, I can show it to my friends, like they don't know what it is, but like if I'm ever gonna post, because it's kind of like an art book, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna have to like block out those pages. But yeah, I don't know. We have our group Google Photos, and so like whenever the time comes to be like, oh my gosh, we'll have to go back and like look at our pictures and then remember um the time and energy that it took to make something. It's kind of nice. I think Rick would agree, like when these things come out so far after you've made them, you like see them with such like fresh and happy, like memories. So you're like, oh wow, we did all of that. I don't know how we did it. You're like, oh yeah, we were like screaming. We never scream. We have a great time. And but yeah, I do. I mean, I do hope. I'm glad that the fans are so interested in D20 and like the mini seasons. Because I want more mini content to come out. I do think people really like it. So I would love like to have like mini edits for like the Instagram or something, like promos, like who cares about these cast members, like show off our sets.
Yeah, show off a weird like God, the words just instantly escaped me. It was a Ravening War reference. Because it was a food man, so like it was gonna be biscuits and gravy. That's the phrase I wanted. Show off your biscuits and gravy, man. Instagram, come on. Yeah, yeah, at least it is nice that you have like a Google like photo collection going, so that you don't have to be like, all right, now I open up my photos and scroll back 1 year. What was I doing? It's also obviously like really nice. You get to like obviously the Rick Perry documentary. He had his list of like where things are. When you're looking back on it, you kind of get to skip the I am shit phase of like building that. You're like, hey, we got there. Because you get to like, hey, it turned out okay because I'm in the future where things are okay.
Yeah, I mean that's the fun thing about making things, is like you'll look at something you made and you're like, how did I do that?
Yeah.
It's like kind of I don't know. It's a weird part of being an artist. Like taking the progress pictures is really important, because you'll get to the end and be like, I don't know. I just did it somehow.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what it is like every season. We're like, I don't really know how we did this, but we did, and it's freaking awesome.
Yeah, and it always is. Yeah, it's funny. In no way is this comparable, but like people will. Like I post obviously the interviews places, the YouTube. That's where I place it, and people will comment, and it will be months after, because like the interviews sit on Patreon for 2 months, and then they go to YouTube, and then like months after that, someone will like leave a comment, and they'll be like, "I can't believe whatever," and I'm like, I have no idea what this comment is about. Like the other day, it was an interview I did with Vic, and someone was like, "What about Gherkin gals?" But they put a time code, which I'm so grateful for people that put time codes, because I'm like, what on earth could this be about? It turns out Vic and I were talking about pickles, and I like dill pickles, and Vic likes bread and butter, and so we were like, if we were on a road trip, we could like swap pickles if we got the ones that the other person didn't like. But like no memory of the conversation until I rewatched it. And yeah, I feel like that. Yeah, that has to happen to you. Of like, oh, everything is a blur, and now I'm sitting down and like watching Dimension 20, and be like, oh, wait, that looks familiar. Oh, I built that. Like those kinds of moments. Are you all still having your like watch parties with your groups? I know you did during junior year, right?
Yeah, we did a couple during junior year. We just did one, I think. But we did one for the other one, the one before that. No, this one we didn't do a watch party. But maybe the next season we will. It's always fun to get together. We get together like just to hang out. We're all friends, so you know. And I feel like we're like we worked on that. We don't need to watch.
Yeah, we don't need to watch it. But it must be nice, like at least, you know, like watching that, certainly junior year, you get to watch, and obviously you get fan reaction, but you also get cast reaction to seeing some of those maps for the first time. You know, like, boy, that's got to be good. I know, like, I think we've talked about, you know, you kind of get word back because you're already on to the next project by the time, like, the cast is using it. And it's like, you get word back of like, oh, they really loved, you know, the Vulture Dimension or whatever it is. But it's got to be good to, like, then get like sit down and watch and be able to see like, oh yeah, like, you know, they really lost their minds at, you know, the mall or, you know, the Night Yorb or whatever it is.
Yeah, I'm kind of a scrubber through person, you know, watch like, you know, it's like every other, you know, I'll watch the battle map episodes and then just kind of scrub through them. But yeah, I mean, that's why I was really excited when we're doing the new season of Drag, because like they go crazy over that. So like in the first season, like their reaction to it, because it's something that they've never experienced, was just like it like brings back that like love that I think so many people feel for minis, like even though it's like unfamiliar to them, like that just like inherent love of like tiny things is just like just so exciting. So yeah, just like seeing people love these things just like brings so much joy and makes everything worth it. And that's I've said this before, but our new artists that we have on the show, like that's one of the big things that that they react to is like that they have people who talk about their stuff, like see it, talk about it, like it when working on like larger productions. You know, like people aren't commenting on a Reddit page about like a stop motion movie, you know, or be like, oh my god, did you see that? So having that like close relationship with about it is like special.
Yeah, I mean, you get those like, yeah, I assume no one, I mean, well, I was going to say Star Wars, but like there probably are people on Star Wars that have dissected every frame of every episode. But like people probably aren't like lovingly talking about, you know, like, oh, look at that. Like this random mini is my favorite thing of the battle, right? You know, and that happens both. I mean, obviously, like you get your players, their reactions of like, oh, here's the thing that I didn't expect and fell in love with instantly. And then obviously fan reaction, probably a lot of times, you know, pushed by what wild thing, like, you know, whatever Allie has fallen in love with on the table, everyone on the internet is also now in love with, which is fair. But yeah, it's really cool to get to see get to see those reactions, get to like appreciate. Obviously, like I get to do this very weird thing where like I get to talk to people like you, where I'm like, hey, you do cool things. Let's talk about the cool things that you do. But this is COVID brain has hit me. What are we 44 minutes into this? And I was like,
really
God,
impressed with
I was like, you're gonna find an answer. You're gonna find a question somewhere if you just keep talking. And I didn't find one. So now I just had to not stop, but just like transition awkwardly to a new thing. The Last Stand. Oh boy, what a fun battle that was. I think it's my favorite of the last season. I think a lot of it is because Kate May's art on the wall of like Arthur Eggfort making out with himself. Like what a delightfully fun and silly like projection.
We call the set something different. Which was...
It was the test, when they had their test and they fought a bunch of monsters.
Yeah.
What did you call it?
What did we call it? So that was like the yellow, like
Yes, like arena.
Yeah, it was like we were calling it a coliseum.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, the yellow coliseum. We just have like little nicknames for them. That was actually the ones I was like the most hands off for. Did you like it because of like all the minis and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, we got to see like a whole bunch of different minis. I know Allison obviously was the one on the like actual paper tests, but you know, like look, I'm a sucker for props apparently, because that's what I love about Never Stop Blowing Up. Like actual paper tests were handed out, and they got to like fill them out. But yeah, it was so many like really cool different minis. It was the like slime minis. I don't remember what they were, but Jesse like that was the one. Literally, Jesse was like melting something with a lighter, and then painting, which is wild. But it was, I think it was because there were so many different minis and so many different kinds of minis that we got to sort of experience all at once. And like I said, the projections add so much to those battles.
I'm excited. I don't know I want them to come out with like a list of how many. I'm sure I could find it, like how many minis were in Fantasy High, because it's just insane. Like every single battle had like hundreds of minis. So it was crazy.
Yeah, I mean, you know, like each battle, like I mean, that mall set was also so stunningly gorgeous, and like you know, had like that beautiful set to it, as well as you know, like again, a ton of different minis. Just like, oh, here's all the wizards, and of course has the like the counter spell of it, where like, oh, the players fell in love with one mini specifically, and they latched onto that. Now it's a thing.
Yeah, we got to, with having so many minis, like I got to paint some minis, and you never really know. Yeah, you never really know what's going to take off. Like I got to paint Marianne Scuttle, and that was, people were like really into her, and I was like, oh, that's fun. So it's always fun to what the fans kind of latch onto.
Yeah, I mean, Marianne was. I mean, I think a lot of that was Brennan totally. Making Marianne the most interesting person anyone had ever met.
It's funny, like we get the drawings, I guess, or like they're like the hero, like a printout from what they're made on Hero Forge with like their colors, so you can kind of like figure out how to paint them. But then like those drawings, you don't like maybe it's just me, I'm sure Jesse and Shane get more information, but they're like, here, paint this, and you're like, okay, no concept, no idea what it is. I stay out of the minis room. Like they and Rick have like their own craziness, and I need to focus on these things. So but like she looks so scary on like the Hero Forge like 3D model. So you're like, oh, this girl's kind of like, or this person's like a weird little gremlin thing. And then you see what's her name, the illustrator, her drawings are like, and she looks so cute, like her little character, she's like do I'm like, that is not the impression that I got. So it's fun to like, you know, there's like so much information, and it's like we get like, I don't know, it's just like, and then it transforms, like Brennan like transforms it on like with his character and stuff, and you're like, oh, now you get like the full picture when it's fine, like just with everybody. There's so much going on.
Yeah, it's super fun. That's very fun that you got to paint Marianne. She's such a weird little. I mean, gremlin is probably the right word, but like, such a lovable gremlin.
Yeah. Weird, like reptile.
Yeah, say it, don't spray it. Like, what a great character. I know you said obviously like Explosion from Never Stop Blowing Up, Frosty Fair, the Thistle Spring tree from junior year. Anything else jumping out at you of like, I guess we actually haven't talked since the end of, we talked after the bear at Burrow's End. So I guess there could be even like something like that final battle in Burrow's End is pretty wild as well. In terms of, oh boy, just a real nightmare man with a melting body.
Yeah, that was really scary.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I think, I mean, one of the more challenging things that we did for Fantasy High was the final battle. That was also, I mean, our final battles are always pretty crazy, but that that took a lot of elements, and that was where you can see it on in the documentary when we watched it, he was like, I wish they didn't put that in, because we were like finishing it minutes before it had to go on the stage, and like Rick's like, okay, they're calling us, and he was like, oh, I wish they didn't add that in there, that we were so close to like go time. But I don't know, we're always trying, like we're always going to take as much time as we're possibly given, but that was like a real
yeah, that was cutting up a previous set and building it so that it could expand out so that there was lava underneath. I mean, how on earth do you even start to do something like that?
Yeah, that was one of those things, like, yeah, every session, or starting in the new set, I go in Rick's office, and he's like, okay, so we're gonna have this, we're gonna cut up the old gym floor, and it's gonna be like this, and then there's gonna expand, and you're like, do you have an idea of how to do that? And he's like, oh, I thought maybe you'd figure that out, and you're like, okay. So we had some ideas, like we were gonna try like telescoping, sort of like when we do the flight stands, around these sort of like telescoping peg, or like, I don't know, like little telescoping rods, but we wanted them to be able to, they couldn't just go up, they had to go in like whatever direction Brennan wanted to go in. That's the thing that makes it very interesting. It's like, okay, well, is it only going to do this thing? And you're like, no, it really depends on like whatever Brennan decides to do. And you're like, okay, so you have to like have this thing, like you have to figure out how to make this like not be just static. It has to just go with the story, however it decides to change. So that was, I think I had like a general idea of like wire, and then I was like, okay, Sadie, why don't you try and figure this out? So that was, yeah, we ended up just having like really strong armature wire, and we had to like that. So we had like kind of like tested it on different pieces, and we're like, okay, it can go down to like a certain height, and then it can go up to a certain height. And we're like, cool. So then like the day of that we're supposed to install it, we're like putting all these pieces together, and we've like realized that, look, just like throughout making it, it's like sort of expanded a little bit, and like with the wire you can't push it all down, so we're kind of like pieces aren't fitting in exactly the way that we wanted it to, which was really stressful. But like when you're done, you're kind of like, well, this isn't exactly how we thought it was going to look, but it still looks pretty freaking cool. So that was definitely a big challenge to figure that one out, but I think it turned out really cool, and like seeing it all be kind of broken up already was fine.
Yeah, no, yeah, I mean they were arriving mid end of the world catastrophe.
Yeah.
So yeah, it made sense that there were cracks in the floor already. Yeah, no, that final battle was so incredible. Speaking of like nostalgic, looking back at the work that you've done, the nostalgic of like, oh, here's our 5 year ago map cut apart, and now it's floating 10 feet in the air because there's lava underneath it now. Yeah. That, yeah, I mean, so much fun. Kelsey, this is the best. Thank you so much. If by chance people aren't following you already to see these wonderful behind the scenes things, where can they find you?
You can find me at Kelsey and the Universe on Instagram, and there's an underscore between each word.
Perfect. Amazing. Thank you so much. Here's a cool thing. In the 9 months that I've been doing this, I have not figured out how to end an interview. So I'm just going to hit stop recording.